Every hardcore addict has doubts if they'll ever get clean. But what if everyone who really knew you, your friends, your family, people you spent time with all thought there is just no way that guy will ever make it? Recovery Today magazine host and fellow recovery and sobriety evangelist Colin Scummy Morrison sat down with Brandon Novak to discuss the rise, fall, and rise again of his fame. This interview is as real as it gets. There is hope, even for those we say are hopeless. Colin and Brandon, they're proof. Here's the story of the guy no one thought could ever get sober. This is the story of Brandon Novak.
What's up, everybody? We're back with Scummy Unplugged. Today we got a really special guest, Brandon Novak, pro skateboard rider, TV star, recovering drug addict. I mean, the guy's kind of done it all, and he's sober like me. He's got his life back. I think your story is a lot like me. I think a lot of people really didn't think we were gonna come out of the dark days, you know. And your story, it's amazing, man. I mean, look where we're at right now.
Yeah. I was talking earlier. No one was betting on me to get sober, including myself. I was that alcoholic that was deemed unhelpable or unfixable. My mother had bought me a plot. People had taken life insurance policies out on me, and I was on life support for 7 days.
Your mom really bought you a plot?
Yeah, 7 years back on Mother's Day. She spent her Mother's Day and went and bought me a plot. Yeah.
So.
You know, at the end of my run, my mother had sold 4 homes. She had depleted several savings accounts, and she had nothing left to give. So she went to the church across the street and went to Father Mike and said, "Father Mike, Brandon's never been worse. I don't know what to do." And she said, "Miss Pat, I'm so sorry to hear that." She said, I've resorted to going to God with one prayer." And Father Mike said, "Oh yeah, what's that prayer, Miss Pat?" And she said, "The prayer is simple. It consists of, God, please cure him, kill him, or kill me because I can't take it anymore." And Father Mike looked at my mother and said, "Miss Pat, how dare you? Don't you ever go to God with a plan like that about your son, because little do you know God has a plan for your son. You don't know what the plan is, I don't know what the plan is, and Brandon sure doesn't know what the plan is." You know?
I think, you know, after I'm sober and you're sober, the big thing is, like, looking back, like, I mean, everything I did to my family, you don't realize it, you know, when you're in that stage, but just, it's sad, you know, kind of looking back at it, just what you put your mom through, what I put my parents through. But I'm sure after what you're doing now, I mean, how's that relationship?
Yeah, it's wild, you know. At the end of my run, you know, a series of events had taken place, and I was supposed to go on tour to Australia. They kicked me off the tour. I went back to my mother's house, and this is the woman who had never said no to me. I knocked on the door. I said, "Mom, the tour is canceled. I'm here to take care of you a little bit longer." And she did the worst thing she could have ever did in the world to me. She looked at me and she didn't say a word. She didn't scream at me. She didn't say, "How did you do this again? What's wrong with you? Let's put you back in rehab." She said nothing at all, as though she was watching her only child stand in front of an Amtrak train coming 1,000,000 miles an hour, and she couldn't do anything to save him.
Yeah.
And all I could do was look at her and I said, "I'll never forget this day as long as I live." I looked at her and I said, "Mom, do you hate me now?" She said, I don't hate you, but I will no longer love you to death." And I've had so many low bottoms in my drinking and drugging career, but this was the lowest bottom I had ever hit, because my bottom came up to meet me. Yeah. Because I knew that this position that I had put myself in yet again was fully self-induced. And if I only would get out of my own way, I could get better. And she said, "I will no longer love you to death." And with that, a police officer comes around the corner and they serve me with a restraining order. And my friends have left the country and went to Australia. And I ended up in this abandoned house. But then I ended up going to treatment. I stay in treatment for 90 days. I go to a sober living house. And 6 months into my process, my mother calls me and she said, "Brandon, I hate when you come to visit." And I said, "Well, why?" And she said, "Because I get so sad when you leave." You know, and that was it. Because the reality is my mother is the most important person in the world to me. There's nothing I wouldn't do for her. But when I was using, everything that I did to her and my family, it wasn't personal, it was business.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I'm that alcoholic that when I pick one up, I lose the privilege to have choices and options of what I will or will not do for one more, or when I do or do not choose to pick it up. When that thing calls, I answer by any and all means necessary. That's my deal.
That's heavy, man. Just that whole story, just the way how you talk about it, man. But it's crazy. Let's rewind a little bit for maybe some people out there that don't know who you are. I'm sure a lot of people know who you are, but let's get back to the basics, man. Back when life was good and it was all about skateboard riding. That's how it started. For me, it was dirt bikes. You was skating. And I look at it, went through all the drug days, and like, for me, I lost the love of dirt bikes.
Yeah.
That's what it started.
Yeah.
For you is skateboard riding, but let's get back to like, how did it start for you before the drugs? What was it?
Well, when I got my first skateboard at the age of 7 years old, my mother put me to bed that night and she said, "Brandon, what do you want me to do with the skateboard?" I said, "I want it in bed with me." She said, "Why?" I said, "Because if I die, I want it to come with me." It was like God had came down and handed me the holy grail in the form of a skateboard. I ate it, I breathed it, I slept it, I dreamt it. At 15, I was designing my own pro model for Pal Peralta. I was the first skateboarder to ever be endorsed by Gatorade. They flew me out to Chicago to the Quaker Oats building. They put me on a treadmill, they put Michael Jordan on a treadmill, and they put wires in our noses and in our mouths, and they gave us each Gatorade to see the effects that it has on different sports players. At 16, I'm like traveling the world with Tony Hawk. I have a private tutor flying with me, and I'm doing really well.
I didn't know it was that big for you, man. Like,
Yeah.
sorry, I was, I was
cool.
skating like motocross my thing, and I read up about you, but I didn't know it was that big. You were the guy back then.
Yeah, and I from 7 years old till the time I was designing my pro model at 15, like I said, I ate it, I breathed it, I slept it, I dreamt it. Somewhere in between that line, I found drugs and alcohol. And I was on a tour, and they found me with some drugs. Long story short, I get kicked off the tour.
How did it find? What was the first thing? Your first beer, drugs? Did you like it?
Well, the thing was, my first drink was like at the age of like 14. I was never the guy that drank because I had insecurities or I felt like I was less than or needed to fit in.
Yeah.
I was a pretty successful dude at a young age, and I lived a life that people rather admired. I was the kind of guy that when I walked into the classroom 20 minutes late, I wasn't scared that everyone was staring at me. I thought that everybody was waiting for me. You know what I mean? So like I didn't suffer from like not feeling part of or feeling less than. That's not my story. I mean, I get it, that's a lot of, but then, oddly enough, when I get sober this time, I remember walking to my last treatment center, and I'm walking up this long driveway, and all of a sudden, the dudes are out there smoking cigarettes, and they're all staring at me. And my first thought is, oh my God, what are they thinking of me? Do I look dirty? Are my clothes too raggedy? All of a sudden, I care now that I'm sober, but so it's just changed. But the reality is a few series of events had taken place, and the drugs and alcohol, they consume me. And the reason why they consume me, and I was kind of too late to do damage repair, is because I was already really successful at a young age.
Yeah.
I didn't have I didn't have a boss. I didn't have anybody to account for every day. I'd have to go to somewhere and have a boss monitor me or watch me. So like, I skateboarded, I traveled the world, I did all these things.
I feel, as addicts, that's a destructive life, I guess, because I never had a job. I didn't know what making a dollar was.
Yeah.
For me, like you, is riding a dirt bike, traveling the world, drugs and alcohol, they were coming to us.
Yeah.
I think it's, and now realizing that we're addicts, I just think it was so easy to fall into that lifestyle, man. It was crazy. How did you get into it? I guess did it start with pain pills? Did alcohol get heavy?
With me, no. Oddly enough, the progression was kind of like everyone else's. It was the alcohol, and I started smoking herb.
Yeah.
And doing herb on a daily basis, and then pills, a little bit of blow.
Yeah.
And then before I knew it, it was heroin. But no one was really stepping in because I was already so successful at a young age that they said,
he's
we
doing good.
believe it, what he's doing, because look, he's been successful to this point, so whatever he's doing, he must know what he's doing.
And that's kind of the lifestyle, so.
Yeah, it kind of is par for the course, if you will.
Yeah.
So then before I had known it, drugs and alcohol consumed me, and it was too late for anybody to say, hey, that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
Because I have that job, and the job pays terribly, and it puts me in a lot of bad positions. But that job is knowing everything. I know everything.
When was the first time you like kind of realized that drugs were really getting in the way?
Well, like you with the dirt bikes. Once I got into my full-blown addiction, skateboarding was not a priority. At all.
Change your love. It was about the drugs.
Exactly. I stopped hanging out with the dudes that skated. When they called, I diverted their phone calls. I wanted no parts of them because they would kind of allow me to see me for who I was, and I avoided reality at all costs. So, and the reality for me also is that when I'm drinking or drugging, I don't do well with the words honest, reliable, or dependable, because they do not help me get one more. And in my story, anything between me and that next one must and will go. It's not personal, it's business. It's because I'm a real deal alcoholic. Yeah. And the reality is anything that I love that somewhat keeps me sober, that I don't want to drink or drug because I don't want to lose, once I pick that one up, get it out of my way. Because now it's just a nuisance or a burden for me doing what I really want to do, which is fucking shoot up smack.
It's crazy with, it's just crazy, like addicts, like all the stories are the same, man.
Yeah.
It's really crazy, just the whole story. Fast forward, start hanging out with, you know, Bam, that TV show, you're on Jackass. Was it at that point, skating was no more, you were fully...
Yeah, well, my delusional alcoholic mind said the skateboarding world needs me, it cannot go on without me, I am an asset. In reality, the skateboarding world did not need me, it went on quite fine without me, and I was a liability.
Yeah.
But I'm the last person to see or know or recognize that because I know everything. So then, I was always confused in my life, and I thought that social acceptability equaled personal recovery. Right? So now skateboarding went into the cooker, or the bottle, the bag. Now I gotta think of something new to build the outside up to make the inside feel like I'm kinda par for the course. And I trip and fall into these movies, Jackass. And now
Before we get into Jackass, that stage of your life, did you kind of burn every bridge? Or did they kind of kick you out, or were you just kind of over that life and you just kind of got way more into partying? How did you get out of skateboard riding?
I was literally over that life. I had burned all the bridges, and I was faced with an ultimatum by Pal Peralta. They called me up and they said, Brandon, we have two options we can do with you. We could put you into treatment, you could save your life, you can continue to be a professional skateboarder, or you can quit. And I didn't have a breath of fresh air in my lungs when I said I quit. Because that thing that I loved and I dreamed and I aspired to be is now a burden. Because it requires me to be honest, reliable, or dependable. That does not equate to a bag of dope, so get it out.
It's amazing with drugs, and like, I mean, you made it to the top at that point. And just how drugs, you just don't even, it doesn't even faze you. Like, screw skateboarding, it's amazing, man. That's why, like, what we're doing, like, sobriety recovery, it's such #1 in my life, in your life, because it's so real out there, man. I just had a bury buddy last week, and it's just amazing, dude, seeing your life. I mean, seeing everything you're
together.
doing. We did party. I was going to get into that, but
sorry.
we'll just jump into it right now. So I guess we're going into, start doing the Jackass thing, but you guys, for Viva La Bam, invited the Metal Militia guys to come out. And I remember, like, somehow I attached to you. You were the party guy, and at that point in my life, I was doing enough drugs where I was kind of trying to fool everybody. Everybody knew I was messed up, but I was just getting by, you know. But I remember, you know, I really attached to you. We were partying pretty hard there, doing a lot of coke, still riding.
Absolutely.
And our good friend Brian Deegan, I remember, don't want to call him out too bad, but he was partying pretty hard the night before. He had to do a backflip over Gwar. And I remember, like, all that. He didn't want to do that. I remember we had a talk in the bus. He didn't want to do that backflip. And at that point of the sport, the backflip was a really big thing. Now people are doing it, you know, with their eyes closed. But he was like the pioneer. It was really windy that day, and they wanted to do a backflip over Gwar. I remember he didn't want to do it. He was so scared. And we're like, dude, I remember me and Manly were like, I don't know if you should do it. He's like, dude, I'm just going to go for it. We're here. It's Viva La Bam. Let's do it. So I remember he did it. He went for it. I remember we were just really tripping. He came up short. The handlebar went in his chest. It ripped out like an aorta from his heart. I don't know the medical term, whatever, but pretty much we thought he was going to die. I remember we were all at the bar doing a bunch of blow, drinking. I remember it was pretty emotional, crying, because we really thought he was going to die. I remember they had to fly his wife out there, and they were like saying, dude, we don't know if he's going to live. So going on to Deegan really quick, he survived, and he changed his whole life after that. He found God. So I think he realized he almost died. Like, dirt bike rider, skateboard, you know, we break bones, but this was a very serious injury. He thought he was going to die. He found the Lord. He got sober. He went on after that day, skyrocketed. He's millionaire. He's on top. in that point in my life, I kept on going downhill, and then that's where I lost track of you, and I got into heroin, lost my life, just lost everything. Going on from there, what happened to you after that stage of your life? I guess now we're into the Jackass and the BAM, because that was a big, people know you for that.
And oddly enough, like, I was able to somewhat remain successful throughout my whole drug addiction, to an extent, mind you.
I understand that.
So, like, then I transpired into the Jackass world, and in that, I was known as Novak, the guy who doesn't give a... Do you cuss on here?
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right. Point proven. I was the guy that didn't give a fuck and comes and goes as he pleases, and that was kind of my character.
That's a bad recipe too.
Yeah,
like at that stage of your life, and now it's like, now I'm accepted. Now, like, I'm ready to go bigger.
Yeah, and
they
it's
want
like
that.
a junkie's dream for me at that time. So, like, I was the party guy, and that was kind of the role that I portrayed. Well, I didn't portray it because that's who I was.
Yeah.
And so now I'm doing all these, once again, went from the skateboarding career now to this Jackass world.
You were classic and all.
Yeah, and they're like, dude, who wants to do this? And it'd be like a gnarly stunt. I'm like, this guy. You're talking to a guy that was homeless, eating out of trash cans, letting men suck him off for $40 to, like, all of a sudden being in movies that break box office records, which gets paid really well to do it, which equals a lot of heroin money. There's nothing I wouldn't do. It's a step up.
Were you still doing heavy heroin in the whole Viva La Bam days?
When I could. When I could. Because those guys, they kind of like, they didn't understand addiction or alcoholism.
Did they know you were doing that?
Well, I had to, like, really keep it under wraps.
As addicts, we're really good at that, dude. I know. I was...
Yeah. So like, BAM kind of put the word out, like, no one give him... They were okay with me doing cocaine and drinking because it's, like, sociably acceptable. I'm not stealing your money, your credit cards, your cars to get more cocaine or wine. But they did not accept me eating pills or doing heroin because then I do all those things. Yeah. And I fall asleep. And it's not a good look. You know?
Yeah.
So now, like, I would go to meetings and they would tell me my life's unmanageable, and I felt and I believed like my life was unmanageable.
You were going to meetings as you were doing?
Oh, totally. Absolutely. I always went to meetings. Me and Bam were talking about this last night. They would be out at the pub, and I'd be like, okay, I'm going to meet you there, but I'm going to a meeting first. And they're like, why? And I'm like, because for that 1 hour, I won't drink or drug. You know, I knew that there was a way up and out of my position, provided I got out of my way. I wasn't ready yet, but I knew it was going to play out one of two ways.
Were you trying to kind of, like, maybe do it, kind of lie to people? I guess for me, I remember I was going to AA meetings. Everybody wanted me to go, and I was snorting Roxy's in the bathroom. But in my head, I would go out and I'd be like, dude, I just went to a meeting, I'm doing it. I was just lying to everybody, but it's weird, my addicted life, like, I felt like I was doing good going to meetings, but I was doing drugs in the bathroom. I don't know.
You know, I'm there with you. For a lot of times.
So you were going to meetings just so you wouldn't drink for that hour, or were you doing it to, like, lie to the people, saying I'm trying to...
That's the first part of the story. The second part is totally what you just said.
Okay.
To say, hey, I just went to a meeting, to tell my then second ex-fiance, clearly I'm horrible with commitment. So, So my second last ex-fiance, I went to a meeting, I'm doing great, only for her to, like, trust me just a little bit more so I could get out and go score some more dope. You know, and everyone would believe, hey, he's got to be doing good. And what I would do is I would go to these meetings and I would loiter with the intent to recover. I would get a sponsor, I would get a home group, I would fellowship fairly easy because I'm a people person. But then you say work the steps, it's like, fucking slow down, stop overreacting.
Easy.
You know, you're simply overreacting here. Like, that doesn't apply to me. And plus, the word work isn't in my forte unless it pays with $10 or a glass of wine.
Yeah.
And then you want me to it's a whole thing with that. But what I would do is then I would continue to attend Brandon's Anonymous. Brandon would sponsor Brandon, and Brandon was Brandon's God. And then I couldn't understand how I'm back on the corner of Eastern Avenue and Patterson Park in Baltimore City, selling my body for $40 to anybody that will buy. And that's not even my deal. But I told you, I'm that real deal alcoholic that when it calls, I answer by any and all means necessary. I don't want to do it, but I don't know how to not do it.
Yeah, it's crazy. I know people are out here, I'm sure some people that don't get addiction, they're looking at us like, dude, these guys are fucked up. I know people out there are looking at this. They understand it.
Yeah.
And hopefully the whole strategy and about how I'm making sobriety #1 like you is, I hope somebody out here is watching our story and being like, dude, look at these guys. they're interviewing each other at a Recovery Today magazine
Yeah.
deal, and we're sober and we have our lives back, and sobriety's just, it's so rad, man. Like the way I feel about the way you feel. I mean, dude, we got our lives back, and it should. Let's not get in the sober part. I kind of like the dark stories, but keeps going on from there.
Sure.
How bad did it get before we get in the sober talk?
So I'm going to these meetings and I'm trying to stay sober, but I'm not willing to do what you guys suggest. And you tell me my life's unmanageable, but then I go do an appearance at a nightclub, and they say, what would you like in your green room? And I'd say some heroin, some cocaine, some Xanax, and some wine. They would get me those substances, they'd put them in my green room, I would take pictures, I would sign autographs, and at the end of the night, I would get a check for $10,000. So like, I already suffer from a delusional state of mind that tells me that I don't have a disease. Right? So follow me. You diagnosed me with HIV. I'm rushing to the hospital to get medication because I don't want to die, fatal disease.
Yeah.
Diagnosed me with cancer. I'm going to the hospital to get chemo because I don't want to die, fatal disease. Diagnosed me as an addict or an alcoholic. I need a glass of wine or a bag of heroin to figure out what the fuck's wrong with you for diagnosing me with such disease. And it's just as fatal as the first two. But I have a disease that tells me I don't have a disease. So now my life doesn't feel right. But then I go do these appearances. I get paid $10,000. They supply drugs and alcohol for me. It provides a living. So now I'm like really delusional. I don't know up from down, hot from cold, left from right. I don't know. Because I get paid. It's like my job. You know? So then the same thing with the skateboarding career happened with the Jackass world. My delusional mind said the Jackass world needs me. It cannot go on without me. I am an asset. In reality, it did not need me. It went on quite fine without me, and I'm a liability.
Did they kick you out, or how did you get out of that whole crew?
Just like the Jackass world. I mean, just like the skateboarding world. Flights weren't being booked. Tours weren't being scheduled. Paychecks were being diverted to my mother.
Is this because you were just going way too big in the party scene? That like, dude, this guy's gonna die.
I was a liability.
Okay.
You know, and my mind told me that I was an asset, but in reality, I was a liability because to do those things required me to be honest, reliable, or dependable. And I told you, you have to get that shit out of my way when I'm drinking and drugging. That doesn't work. So then the wheels fall off on that deal, and now I got to come up with a plan of how I'm going to get sober. I'm not willing to go back to treatment because like I'm unique. Look at my resume. I can make things happen.
I can do it. I can pull this.
So I come up with a foolproof plan of how I'm going to beat my addiction, alcoholism.
I want to hear this.
This is gonna. You strap me up to a polygraph, I would have passed with flying colors. I would have bet my mother on it. That's how I believed it.
Yeah.
I'm going to move to Helsinki, Finland.
What year was this?
This was, oh dude, every years were just a blur to me.
Yeah, I get it.
Maybe 2008 maybe. I'm gonna move to Helsinki, Finland. It's literally across the world. They don't even speak my language there. I can go there, I can regroup, I can rebrand, I can reassess, I can reevaluate, I can fucking redo life, and I'm gonna do it. Because I know that I don't wanna do what I'm doing now. I touch down in Helsinki, Finland. I go to this nice 5-star hotel because at a young age, my mother always told me.
You thought you were going there to get away from the drugs because I can't talk to anybody, I can't get the drugs. That's the main reason. Okay.
Straight up, I don't know anybody. I'm gonna go rebrand myself.
Okay.
I'm gonna redo fucking life. Really. That was my plan. I'm gonna redo it. I'm gonna start new. No one knows me. And I got there, and my mother told me at a young age, show me who you walk with and I'll tell you who you are. And I never forgot that. So even though I always drank and drugged, I tried to be around people of a higher caliber because I didn't want to look like that junkie. So I go to this really nice 5-star hotel, and I go right to the lobby bar. And I swore off drugs. I was not gonna do it. I go right to the lobby bar, and I get bottle after bottle. Just like me and you connected, I found a guy, he had a guy, and now I'm having heroin delivered to the hotel. I call my sponsor. I'm like, Lex, what the fuck? How did this happen? And he said, well, genius, let me break the news to you. I guess you skimmed over the part in the book where geographical change does not equal recovery.
That's what I'm going to say to the people out there. I'm looking at you guys. That's the biggest deal.
Yeah.
They think and I get so many people right now, dude, I'm gonna move to California. I'm going to go to rehab here. I don't know anybody there. And that's where I just had to interrupt you because I hear it so much, man. And like, look at your story. So people out there, move to a different state, across the world, you're still gonna find the drugs, and you did it.
And that's what my sponsor told me. So he said, look, allow me to tell you, geographical change is not equal recovery. He said, I'm gonna take it a step further, Mr. Know-It-All. The drinking and the drugging is not your problem. And I'm like, holy fuck, that was like a punch to the gut or a bullet to the brain. Because I thought if I physically just sat it down, I'd be better.
Yeah.
He said, no, the drinking drunk is not your problem. That's your solution. And he said, your problem is your thinking, your attitude, and your behavior. The reality is you can't shake your shadow. You take you with you everywhere you go. I put you in Finland, you shoot dope. I put you in Africa, you shoot dope. I put you in Ventura County, you shoot dope. People talk about triggers. My triggers are when my eyelids open. And I'll go shoot dope all day long with that camera until I'm tired of carrying it. And when I'm tired of carrying it, it doesn't fucking matter because my disease says you don't have the privilege to put it down. You keep carrying it, motherfucker. And I have to because I don't have the ability to say no to my disease.
Yeah.
And so then I get on a plane, I come back, and I say, okay, that clearly didn't work. I'm going to come up with another
How long
plan.
were you there for?
I stayed for like 6 days.
So that whole, your own little idea didn't really go too good.
Yeah.
Okay, you're back in America, then what happens?
So now I got to come up with another plan.
Plan B.
Plan B. And this is going to fucking work.
Novak's plan A.
Yeah,
No.
I know everything, so how
Okay.
can it fail, right? I'm a genius. All right, I got to do it, but I'm not willing to go back to treatment centers because they clearly are
You just
mistaken.
weren't ready? You were scared? Or like?
No, I felt that I could
Have you
do
been to
it
rehab
different.
before?
13 times.
Okay, we never
Yeah.
got into that. So
Yeah,
you've been,
bypassed that.
you
Yeah.
bypassed that whole
Yeah.
chapter 13 times in rehab. That's a big one.
Inpatient. I've lost count of outpatients and detoxes.
You just weren't ready.
Yeah, that's clearly the deal.
I tell people, like, you could go for a night. I went to rehab one time. I just never went to rehab. I went to an outpatient rehab, I guess. I wasn't ready. I was buying fake piss, peeing.
Yeah.
I went to rehab for 30 days. I was ready 2 days into it. Like, I knew I went in there without an ego, but I wanted it.
Yeah,
And that's
it.
the biggest thing with the ego thing. I'm sure you'll talk about. I remember in rehab, the dudes that thought they had it, they're not going to listen to the instructors. Those guys went out. I went in there like a fucking little puppy.
Yep.
Tail just listened to everything, brought it all in, and like every day, it was just so easy.
Yeah.
So if you want it,
And that's the deal.
Sobriety works
At
and
the end
rehab
of my
works.
point, that's where I got. I was demoralized in just such a fashion from drugs and alcohol. I was beaten into a state of reasonableness that you had my attention. And what that allowed me to realize
this was after Europe.
oh yeah, this is at the end of my story.
Okay.
But I'm horrible at staying on track.
Dude, this is like I'm interviewing you now, but like I'm a fan. This is almost like I'm like counseling. This is an amazing
yeah.
interview. Like all the shit you're telling me, I'm trying to.
I'm like so high on life.
Dude,
right now. I'm ready to, like,
I know,
jump
but
out and
I
make
love-
up. I'm ready to like make out with you. Dude. We're gonna get real intimate real quick.
That's the next chapter,
Tune in
guys.
next week, sickos.
No, dude, this interview, just the way you talk about it, like people know I preach about sobriety, and just to hear like another person, your story, it's so rad because people out there that I get it, I know you get it, and I get where they're at. They're in a state of mind where they just want to kill themselves, and you know that feeling when you just don't have a sack, you're in your bed, you think there's not a way out. I hope people are watching this knowing that there is a way out.
There is.
And that you can get your life back. Your story, my story, it's just, you can get your life back. So let's just fast forward. How did you give up? When did the white flag come up?
Well, real quick to jump on what you
Okay,
just
yeah,
said about not giving up. One of my biggest things that I tell people is addiction is not a death sentence. Your history does not have to dictate your future. As long as you're breathing, it's never too late. You and I are clearly evidence of that.
Yes.
So then, okay, I come up with another plan. I got to do something because at this point now, I'm the alcoholic that wants to kill himself on a daily basis. But the hit is that I don't want to hurt myself in the process. So every day I wake up saying tomorrow's going to be different. And I wake up tomorrow only to repeat yesterday's actions, and I'm stuck in like a Groundhog's Day effect for the better part of 21 years. So okay, I got to come up with another plan. I'm going to go on tour. And this tour is going to go with a rock and roll band, and we're going to go to 29 countries in 32 days. That's going to work because clearly Finland was the problem. Now I have 28 other countries to find my solution.
I don't think this idea is going to work either. But I
At
want
the
to hear
time,
it.
dude, I would have bet my life on it.
Yeah.
Because I have that delusional alcoholic mind that makes me believe the unbelievable.
Addicts out there, they're watching. They're like, dude, I get it.
Yeah, man. You feel me, boys? So I get on the tour. I make it to the fourth country, which is Australia. I'm not so politely asked to leave the tour. I fly back. I go to my mother's house, and I knock on her door. And I'm like, hey, Mom, the tour. I left the tour. I'm here to hang out. And she's like, she's crying profusely, like waterworks. I said, what's wrong with you? She said, I got 4 different phone calls from 4 different men with 4 very heavy accents today. They said if I did not deposit X amount of dollars into X amount of bank accounts, I was to view your body at the morgue tonight. And I said, stop fucking overreacting. I'm here. Right? Because I think everyone else has the problem, not me.
Yeah. Why were they trying to get money?
Because dude, God only
just
knows.
owed money.
I robbed Peter to pay Paul, you know. I was just like treading water at best.
Yeah, heavy.
That's what I did, you know. That's why my book's called Dream Seller, because like I'm really good at selling dreams, man.
I'm honored you gave me a book. I can't wait to go home and read it, dude.
Yeah.
And I know that's doing good.
It's doing great. That's whatever. Right?
We'll get in. I want to finish your story, but I'm a fan just listening to this.
So that doesn't work, right? Now I got to come up with another plan of how I'm gonna like beat my deal. And remember, social acceptability equals personal recovery. What I know now that I didn't know then is I was trying to fill this internal void with an external solution. Money, property, prestige, right? So I got to come up with something else to make people believe that I'm doing good, that validation. So I write this book, right? Now, prior to writing this book, I'm not a high school graduate. I have no GED. I got my GED later on after the book was published in prison. The only reason why I got it in prison is A, because I had the time, and B, if you passed the GED, you got a pizza party supplied by Domino's. So that was a fucking no-brainer. Who doesn't want Domino's in the joint? So go figure, I aced that bitch. Because it was my idea. The reason why I did so bad in treatment centers, psychiatrist's office, doctor's office, meetings, is because it wasn't my idea.
Yeah.
You tell me what I need to do, I tell you I need to fuck off because I know everything. So I write this book, right? No GED, no high school diploma. So now I'm a former professional skateboarder. I've been in these movies that break box office records. Now I'm a published author. Take it a step further, with no GED, no diploma, but I can make things happen, which is horrible for my delusional alcoholic mind. I write this book, the book gets published. Now
You wrote this book on drugs?
On cocaine and wine. Full force.
Okay.
Full force. And now the book is published, and it's an autobiography addiction memoir, right? So now I've written a book on addiction. Let's take it a step further. It becomes a New York Times bestseller.
In this book, because I'm sorry I haven't read, I'm gonna read this thing tonight. Do you talk about sobriety in it?
No.
So you weren't like bullshitting, like
no.
it was just.
Well, the way the book's laid out is because I never wrote a book. I went to my co-author, who's a really smart guy. He has letters in front and behind his name. I said, "How do you write a fucking book? Like that's not what I do." And he said, you know, generally it's written in 12 chapters. So how I wrote it was it starts out with my last day using. I did something I swore I would never do. Okay. And that was prostituting my body to another man, right? And so then that day I'm like, and then after I do what I swore I would never do, and that happens at like 10:30 at night in Baltimore. The heroin shops close at 11 p.m. It's 10:30 at night. I'm down by the water. This older gentleman's giving me a blowjob, and I'm like, how the fuck did I get here? But time is of an essence because I have 20 minutes to make it back up before the dope shops close. I get the $40. I get him to drive me up there. It's like 10:58. I get out on the block. And now I'm like, I have all this like, no patience, right? I have no patience, weird, and adequate patience, right? So, and I'm sick, so I buy 3 pills of dope, I buy 1 nickel of cocaine, and I'm saving the last $5 to buy a pack of cigarettes. So I bought the 3 pills of heroin, and I bought the nickel of cocaine, and I'm in a line at this little bodega, and I'm going to buy my $5 pack of cigarettes, and I decide, let me make sure that's real. I taste the heroin, it's fake. I taste the cocaine, it's fake. I'm like, dude, I woke up at 6 a.m. trying to get money. I'm sick. I was sick when I woke up at 6 a.m. It's now 11 p.m. All day I've did things I did, and then I let this guy blow me only to get $40 to now get ripped off. You gotta be kidding me. So I take the $5, I get out of line, I go buy a $3 pill of heroin, which does nothing for me. And next thing, I go to rehab the next morning. And when I go to rehab, I meet my counselor, and my counselor takes me back from like the age of 14 and then throughout the whole treatment center stay. That's how, so I'm clean in the book, because I'm like, but I'm not clean while I'm writing. Okay. But in the book, I'm writing about an experience I had in one of my umpteen treatment centers.
Wow, man.
So now I'm a published author, and the book is an autobiography. I'm a published author who's written a book on addiction. The book becomes a New York Times seller, and now I'm receiving hundreds of thousands of pieces of mail from all over the world of people like you saying, I read your book, I didn't want my story to get as bad as yours, I have 30 days. Of people like you saying, I read your book, I understand why my father picks the bottle over coming coming to have dinner with me on the weekends. It's not because I'm a bad daughter. It's because he has the disease of addiction, right? So my delusional mindset, I just wrote the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, or the basic text of Narcotics Anonymous.
Yeah.
And for people who don't know what that is, that's like the holy grail for us recovering
Sobriety,
people.
yeah.
It's like our guide to living. Now I believe that I just wrote that book because I'm saving all these people's lives.
You're
At least
sober,
I like to think I am.
Sober Jesus.
But I can't keep a needle out of my arm. So I'm like, fuck. So the night my book's being released in Times Square, my literary agent's there, my publishers are there, my manager's there. I don't have any heroin that day. And they're not giving me any money to get my heroin. Because what I didn't know then that I know now is it would not be a good look for me sitting there signing my books while falling asleep into them. But my disease doesn't understand boundaries or yes or no. When it calls, I answer. So I'm ill as a research monkey, and they're bringing my books in, and I have another buddy of mine from Baltimore with me, and when they wheel the books in, me and him look at each other, and we don't say a word, but we have a full-blown conversation with eye contact. And when they bring my books in, I grab 2 boxes of my books, he grabs 2 boxes of my book, and I go to the Amtrak train station, and I go right back to Baltimore, and I sign and sell my books to 2 different stores. Now I'm stealing my own addiction memoirs to take back to Baltimore to sell to buy more heroin. Like, how the fuck did I get here?
Yeah.
How did I get here? My mother's a nuclear physicist. My brother's an attorney in the White House. I lived with a cautionary tale. My father taught me one thing in life. If and when I go to prison, how to conduct myself. I hated that man because he was a drug addict.
Yeah.
And I always swore that I would never be him.
And then you were there
And now
doing...
I'm him. What? How?
How did you find sobriety through all this? That's like, I want to know. The people want to know, because this is like, the story's just gnarly and amazing. How did you find sobriety, and how are we here now talking?
So what happened to me, and thank God it happened, is the delusional effect produced by heroin or cocaine or wine stopped appearing when I put it in me, right? Which means I no longer could live with or without a drink or a drug. It literally stopped working. So like before, when I'd put a bag of dope in me or a bottle of wine in me, it was okay because it would allow me to escape the reality for which I had created for myself, right? Then I was okay with being homeless. I was okay with selling my body. I was okay with sleeping in abandoned houses. It was par for the course. But now, what do I do when I can't load my needle up anymore? Because if I put another drop of water on it, the plunger will fall out because it's literally full to the gill. And when I put it in me, it no longer works. I'm no longer okay with letting men give me blowjobs. I'm no longer okay with sleeping in abandoned houses. The delusional effect produced by heroin stopped appearing because I knew there was a better way. Now I'm at a point where that gift of desperation is showing up, that God moment. I'm at a point where I'm so low the curb looks like a skyscraper. I'm fucking horrible at suicide because I keep waking up. I'm like, dude, I don't know. So I go into this, a lot of events continue to happen. We could talk for 10 more hours. I end up going back to this treatment center. And
I like that one, dude. The curb looks like a skyscraper. Yeah. I'm gonna hold on to that. I mean, that's like a rock bottom. That's it right there. That's an amazing.
I was there, and I no longer, even if you gave me a handful of heroin, I wouldn't have felt better.
Yeah.
Because it no longer worked.
You were just done.
I was done. I was beaten into that state of reasonableness.
Yeah.
Demoralized in just such a fashion. And I go into this last treatment center. I had been to it 4 previous times. And the last 4 previous times, I would sit in the same chair with the same
Did they
intake.
laugh at you when you came in? Were they go, you again?
This is what happened. So I go in and I'm sitting in the chair that I've sat in 4 previous times with the same intake coordinating woman that I've sat and talked to 4 previous times. And how it would go like this is, Mr. Novak, your insurance covers 90 days. And I would say, in theory, 90 days sounds great, but in reality, I'm more of like a 45-day kind of fella. I have this woman to do, this job to fulfill, and this state to go to. And the woman would laugh at me each and every time and she'd say, sweetheart, you have no idea. Anything and everything that you put in front of your recovery does not or will not matter because you will lose it. And I'd say, well, I guess you didn't see my resume. You haven't seen what I'm able to produce. Like, But what happens is ignorance is bliss, but when you know, you fucking know. And I remembered her telling me that the last 4 previous times and me trying to leave and prove a point that she was wrong. And when I came back in this last time, when she presented to me the same opportunity, I couldn't say no, because if I said no, that entailed an explanation. And all I could do was shake my head yes. And she said, sweetheart, you're in no condition to do your intake. Get up to detox. I'll see you in 4 days. And I go up to detox, and a story that I like to tell that happened right before me going to treatment is, in theory and on paper, I was a very successful individual, did things in life that people equate to success or happiness, or that some even dream of doing. In reality, I'm a 35-year-old man, and my worldly possessions consist of 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, and a stick of deodorant that fits into a bag that doubles as my pillow. And I was supposed to board this flight. A whole bunch of things happened. And when I went to go see the boys to cop a few more bags of dope, I didn't wear underwear because I was a homeless junkie, so I wasn't going to wash underwear or find an imaginary drawer to put them in. My life was the getting and using and finding ways and means to get one more. So I went to go cop, and I had these dress slacks on, I had a button-up shirt on, and I had these at once point in time nice Brooks Brothers shoes, but I had lost a shoestring along the way. When I went to go cop from the boys, they saw fit to rob me as opposed to serve me. They ripped my front and back pockets completely out. Now my dick and my ass are completely exposed. They ripped my shirt open. The only button that stays buttoned is this top button, and I got these shoes on with one shoestring, and now I'm roaming the streets of East Baltimore looking like a gay East LA Cholo gangbanger, right? That didn't work, so I go to the airport and I try to board this flight to Fort Lauderdale. When I walk in, she says, Mr. Novak, are you under the influence of anything? When I'm trying to get my ticket. I said no. She says, I believe you are. You will not fly for 72 hours. Not like the next flight or tomorrow morning. 3 days, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
My delusional mind said the woman knows who I am. Her son or daughter probably has an issue with drugs and alcohol. She's blaming their addiction on me. She's pissing on my parade. How dare her? In reality, nobody that dressed the way I was dressed would be allowed to board a flight, much less walk outside. And 2 things I've learned in my career is I will never win an argument with a judge or a TSA airport security agent, which I'm sure you know. What they say
Very
goes.
much, yep.
But what happened is something really pivotal. And a very pivotal point in my sobriety happened right there. I did not want to board this flight because if I boarded this flight, I knew it was going to end bad. My heart was beating a million miles an hour like I just shot a kilo of cocaine. I didn't want to board the flight, but I didn't know how to not board the flight because the person in Fort Lauderdale who was paying for my trip had drugs for me. But I didn't want to go, but I don't know how to not go. So what happened was God dressed up in the form of a TSA airport security agent and did for me what I could not do for myself. And when she didn't allow me to get on that flight, I stepped out of line and I called my sponsor and I said, Lex, I'm stranded at BWI Airport and I want to kill myself. Now, mind you, for my very first treatment center at 17, I walked into that place and I wasn't buying what they were selling and I was not drinking their Kool-Aid. I was not them, nor would I ever be. Now at my very last treatment center at 35, you people are the only people that answer my calls and you don't even give me $10. So I'm like stuck with these people in recovery. And he says, come get me, I'll take you to see your PO, you'll go to rehab. So now I get to the rehab, and when I'm walking up to the detox, my therapist stops me. The same therapist that I still see today privately because they told me in the beginning, stick to the basics so God willing you never have to go back to the basics. She looks at me, she says, Mr. Novak, you're back. I'm like, yeah. She said, if you play your cards right, today, right now, can be the best day of your life. And I said, Christina, do you need a fucking urinalysis? Are you high? You know who I am. You know what I'm capable of doing. I stand before you looking like a gay East LA Cholo gangbanger. All my worldly possessions in this bag that doubles as my pillow. She said, trust me, play your cards right. Today will be the best day of your life. Get up to detox. I'll see you in 4 days. I get up to detox. There's a 19-year-old kid working, a little tech kid. He said, Mr. Novak, you're back. I'm like, no shit, I'm back. He said, your clothes are not rehab oriented. You need some underwear. You need some sweatpants. You need some slides. The fact of the matter was I was never so grateful to have a pair of underwear, but my disease didn't allow me to have them. So what he did was he said, let's go downstairs to the basement of this Catholic Charities rehab and we're going to find you a pair of 2nd, 3rd, 5th, 10th hand pair of underwear. That gift of desperation is now appearing. I'm in this basement of this Catholic Charities rehab at 35 years old. There's a 19-year-old kid digging in a box looking for a pair of 2nd, 3rd, 5th, 10th hand pair of underwear, and I'm praying to God he finds them, right? I'm willing, like you were talking about. I was willing to do whatever it said. He doesn't find a pair of underwear, but what he finds is a pair of